The massive space station hung in the void like a glittering jewel. Nexus 7 was the pride of the Galactic Federation, a symbol of unity among the stars. But today, it felt more like a prison to Ambassador Kim Tae-ho as he walked through its gleaming corridors. Kim Tae-ho had been Earth's chief diplomat for 12 years. He was a calm man with graying hair and tired eyes that had seen too many failed negotiations. Behind him walked Park So-ra, a sharp woman in military uniform who served as humanity's military advisor. Beside her was Lee Min-woo, a younger man carrying data tablets filled with economic reports that nobody seemed to care about. Same room as always, Park So-ra muttered under her breath. Same table, same faces, same result. Kim Tae-ho nodded but said nothing. This was their 7th attempt to gain full membership in the Galactic Federation. 7 times they had come here with hope. 7 times they had left with disappointment. The meeting room was huge, with a dome-shaped ceiling that showed the stars outside. 3 large sections of the room were designed for the 3 main Federation species. The Veltar section was dark and humid, perfect for the insect-like creatures who thought as one hive mind. The Queth area sparkled with crystal formations that the rock-like beings used to communicate. The Nethrim space was filled with swirling gases where the cloud beings floated. In the center sat a small table for the humans. Just 3 chairs for the species that controlled 15% of known space. Kim Tae-ho took his seat and waited. He had learned patience over the years, even when every fiber of his being wanted to stand up and walk out. Earth needed this alliance. Humanity needed friends among the stars, or so he had believed for so long. The Veltar Queen voice entered first. Histara was 7 feet tall with 4 arms and compound eyes that never seemed to blink. When she spoke, it was with the voice of billions of her kind, all thinking the same thoughts across dozens of worlds. The human delegation has returned, Histara said, her voice buzzing like a swarm of angry bees. How curious. We thought you might have learned wisdom by now. Next came the Queth representative, Crystallux. The being looked like a walking mountain of precious gems, each crystal surface reflecting light in different colors. When Crystallux spoke, the crystals chimed like bells. Humans persist in their requests, the crystal being sang, yet they show no evolution from their primitive state. Finally, the Nethrim representative flowed into the room like colored smoke. Gaseous Prime had no solid form, just shifting clouds of purple and gold gas that somehow formed words. We gather again to discuss what cannot be discussed. Gaseous Prime whispered like wind through leaves. Humans seek what they cannot have. Kim Tae-ho stood slowly. He had given this speech before, but something felt different this time. Maybe it was the way they looked at him, like he was some annoying insect that kept buzzing around their heads. Honored representatives, he began, his voice steady and clear. Earth comes before you once again to request full membership in the Galactic Federation. We have met every requirement you have set before us. He gestured to Lee Min-woo, who activated a holographic display. Numbers and charts filled the air between them, showing humanity's achievements over the past decade. Human space now encompasses 43 star systems. Kim Tae-ho continued. Our population has grown to 8 billion across 67 colonies. Our ships carry 30% of all Federation trade goods. Our scientists have shared breakthrough technologies in quantum computing, medical research, and energy storage. The display showed images of human achievements, massive space stations, thriving colonies, ships that could cross the galaxy in weeks instead of months, technologies that had revolutionized life for billions of beings across the Federation. Our military forces have kept peace in the Outer Rim for 6 years, Park So-ra added, standing to address the assembly. Human peacekeepers have prevented 4 wars and stopped the Scar Empire from expanding 3 times. Lee Min-woo stepped forward with his economic data. Human colonies purchase 42% of Federation-manufactured goods. Our research grants have funded advancement projects on 61 Federation worlds. The Corvin Zilith and Morphic species have all requested direct trade partnerships with Earth. Kim Tae-ho looked at each representative in turn. We have proven our worth as partners. We have shown our commitment to galactic peace and prosperity. We ask once more for the full membership that our contributions have earned. The 3 Federation representatives looked at each other without speaking for long moments. Kim Tae-ho had seen this before. They were communicating in ways humans could not detect, making decisions about humanity's future without human input. Finally, Histara spoke for all of them. The Federation Council has reviewed your request. Once again, we find humanity lacking in the essential qualities needed for full membership. Kim Tae-ho felt something cold settle in his chest. What qualities? You are too violent, Crystallix chimed. Your species solves problems with force instead of wisdom. Too unpredictable, Gaseous Prime whispered. You make decisions based on emotion rather than logic. Too primitive, Histara buzzed. You have not evolved beyond your basic animal nature. The Veltar Queen voice stood to her full height, looking down at the human delegation like a parent scolding children. You are useful to the Federation, yes. Your trade is profitable. Your military serves our purposes. Your technology advances our goals. She paused, letting her words sink in. But membership in the Federation requires more than usefulness. It requires civilization. It requires evolution beyond the crude impulses of primitive species. Kim Tae-ho felt Park Sora tense beside him. He put a gentle hand on her arm before she could speak. Perhaps, Histara continued, in another 1,000 rotations of your sun, you will grow beyond your current limitations. Perhaps your species will learn wisdom, patience, and proper thinking. Until then, you will remain associate members grateful for the privileges we allow you. The room fell silent except for the humming of the station's systems. Kim Tae-ho looked at his colleagues, then at the data still floating in the holographic display. All of humanity's achievements, all their contributions, all their sacrifices for galactic peace, reduced to nothing more than useful, primitive behavior. Something changed in Kim Tae-ho at that moment. Maybe it was the way Histara looked at him, like he was something she might step on without noticing. Maybe it was the casual dismissal of everything humanity had worked for. Or maybe it was the sudden realization that respect could never be begged for or earned through service. It could only be demanded through strength. He stood up slowly, his movements calm and deliberate. Park Sora and Lee Minwoo watched him with surprise as he gathered his data tablets and closed the holographic display. I understand, Kim Tae-ho said quietly. His voice was so calm that it seemed to surprise the Federation representatives. Thank you for making your position clear. He turned to his colleagues. Pack everything. We're leaving. But Ambassador, Lee Minwoo started to say. Now, Kim Tae-ho said firmly. As they gathered their materials, Histara made a sound that might have been laughter. You cannot simply leave, humans. You need the Federation more than we need you. Kim Tae-ho paused at the door and turned back. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that none of them had heard before. Earth hereby withdraws from all Federation treaties, trade agreements, and cooperative ventures, effective immediately. We thank you for the lesson in our place in the galaxy. We will not forget it. The 3 Federation representatives stared at him in shock. Crystallex's crystals dimmed with confusion. Gaseous Prime's form swirled with what might have been alarm. Even Histara's compound eyes seemed to widen. You cannot be serious, she buzzed. Your economy will collapse without Federation markets. Your colonies will be defenseless without Federation protection. Kim Tae-ho smiled for the first time in years. It was not a pleasant smile. We'll see, he said simply. Then he walked out, followed by Park Sora and Lee Minwoo, leaving the 3 most powerful beings in the galaxy, staring at an empty doorway and wondering what had just happened. Behind them, the holographic display flickered one last time before going dark, taking with it the last formal connection between humanity and the Galactic Federation. 6 months had passed since Ambassador Kim Tae-ho walked out of the Federation Council chambers. Captain Choi Young-sik stood on the bridge of the battleship Seoul, watching the last human cargo ship leave Federation space. The massive vessel was loaded with goods, equipment, and people who had chosen to return to human territory, rather than stay in alien space. That's the last one, Captain, reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Nam Hae-won. All human vessels have cleared Federation borders according to the withdrawal orders. Choi Young-sik nodded grimly. He was a stocky man with silver hair and scars on his hands from years of military service. He had spent 15 years protecting Federation trade routes from pirates and hostile aliens. Now those same routes were becoming empty as human ships pulled back to their own space. Signal the fleet, he ordered. All ships return to New Seoul. Operation Homecoming is complete. Across human space, similar scenes were playing out. On the trade station Busan 7, Station Commander Park Jin-young was overseeing the removal of all human personnel and equipment. The aliens who worked there watched nervously as humans packed up advanced computers, medical equipment, and manufacturing tools that they had brought to make the station more efficient. "Commander," said Dr. Kang Soo-jin, the station's head of medical research, "the Veltar are asking if we can leave the new surgical robots. They say they don't know how to maintain them without our help." Park Jin-young didn't look up from his data pad. "All human technology comes with us. Those were President Yoon Se-ra's direct orders." Dr. Kang Soo-jin hesitated. "But sir, those robots have saved thousands of lives. The aliens really need them." Park Jin-young finally looked at her. "The Federation made it clear that we're too primitive for full membership. If we're too primitive to be partners, then surely they don't need our primitive technology." The withdrawal wasn't just about ships and equipment, it was about knowledge. Dr. Han Ye-jin, the head of Earth's scientific consortium, sat in her office on Luna Station reading through hundreds of research agreements that were being canceled. Each one represented years of human work shared freely with Federation scientists. Her assistant, Dr. Seo Kyung-ho, brought her another stack of files. "The quantum computing project on Veltar Prime is asking for the completion codes. Without them, their computers will shut down in 3 weeks." Dr. Han Ye-jin signed another cancellation order. "Classified. All quantum research is now restricted to human scientists only." "What about the medical nanobots we developed for the Queth? They're treating a plague on their outer colonies." "Classified. The energy storage systems for the Nethrim weather control networks?" "Classified." Dr. Seo Kyung-ho looked troubled. "Doctor, some of these technologies are being used to save lives. Millions of aliens depend on human innovations for their basic survival." Dr. Han Ye-jin put down her pen and looked at her assistant. She was a kind woman who had dedicated her life to helping others through science. But her eyes had grown hard over the past few months. "The Federation had 7 chances to treat us as equals," she said quietly. 7 times they told us we were too primitive, too violent, too unpredictable. They made it clear that our contributions were useful but not valued. Well, now they can see how useful our primitive technology really is. The effects were felt immediately across Federation space. On the Veltar homeworld, factories that had been upgraded with human efficiency systems began to slow down and break down. The aliens had become so dependent on human maintenance and improvements that they had forgotten how their old systems worked. Administrator Queth Singer Crystallix was in his crystal chamber on Queth Prime when the reports started coming in. His crystalline body rang with alarm frequencies as he read update after update about supply chain failures, technology breakdowns, and economic disruptions. The crystal formations around him chimed with confusion and growing worry. Trade routes that had carried Federation goods for decades were suddenly empty. Ports that had been busy with human cargo ships now sat quiet and unused. But it wasn't just the economic impact. The Scar Empire, humanity's longtime enemy, had noticed the human withdrawal too. Without human patrol ships watching the border systems, Scar raiders began testing Federation defenses. Small attacks at first, probing for weakness. General O. Dong-min, Earth's highest military commander, stood in the war room on Terra Station reading intelligence reports about increased Scar activity. Around him, holographic displays showed the positions of human fleets, now concentrated in human space instead of scattered across the galaxy protecting aliens. "Sir," reported Colonel Yu Sang-ho, his intelligence chief, "the Scar have attacked 3 Federation outposts this week. The aliens are requesting immediate human assistance." General Oh Dong-min laughed bitterly. "Let me guess. They're offering us associate member rates for our services?" "Actually, sir, they're demanding we honor our old peacekeeping agreements. They seem to think we're still obligated to protect them." "Send a simple reply," the general said. "Human forces are no longer available for Federation security operations. They should contact their full member species for military assistance." The reply sent shockwaves through Federation leadership. For the first time in decades, they would have to defend themselves without human help. The problem was that most Federation species had reduced their own military forces, relying on human protection instead. Meanwhile, Something unexpected was happening in human space. Without the burden of Federation regulations, taxes, and restrictions, human colonies were experiencing rapid growth. The resources that had been flowing to Federation worlds were now staying in human space, funding new projects and expansion. President Yoon Se-ra stood before the Human Colonial Assembly on New Seoul, giving her first major speech since the withdrawal. She was an elegant woman in her 50s with steel in her voice and fire in her eyes. "My fellow humans," she began. "6 months ago, the galaxy told us we were not good enough to sit at their table as equals. Today, I'm here to tell you that we don't need their table. We're building our own." The assembly hall erupted in cheers. Representatives from 43 human worlds stood and applauded as President Yoon Se-ra continued. The Federation claimed, "We were too primitive for membership, but they were happy to use our primitive technology, our primitive protection, and our primitive trade goods. Well, now our primitive resources are staying right here in human space, funding human projects and human expansion." She activated a holographic display showing human space. New colonies were marked in bright blue, expanding into regions that the Federation had declared protected or reserved for future development. "The aliens said we needed them more than they needed us, but look around you. Are we collapsing? Are we failing? Or are we growing stronger every day?" The truth was becoming clear to everyone. Human productivity had actually increased since leaving the Federation. Without alien oversight committees, environmental restrictions, and cultural sensitivity requirements, human engineers and scientists were free to work at their full potential. Dr. Lim Chan-woo, head of the New Seoul shipyards, was designing vessels that would have been impossible under Federation regulations. Ships with more powerful weapons, faster engines, and better shields than anything the aliens had ever seen. "The Federation limited our military technology," he explained to his design team. "They said it was for galactic peace, but really it was to keep us weak. Now we can build ships that can protect human space properly." But perhaps the most significant change was happening in human attitudes. For decades, humans had looked up to the Federation species as older, wiser, more advanced. Now they were seeing the truth. The aliens were not superior beings. They were just different and in many ways less capable than humans. Intelligence Chief Baek Ji-ho was compiling reports that painted a shocking picture. Federation worlds were struggling with problems they had always relied on humans to solve. Their economies were contracting. Their technology was failing. Their military was proving inadequate against even minor threats. "Sir," he reported to President Yoon Se-ra, "we're receiving unofficial contact requests from 17 Federation species. They want to know if we'd be interested in bilateral trade agreements outside of Federation oversight." President Yoon Se-ra smiled. "Interesting. It seems some aliens are smarter than others." The most surprising contact came from the Corvan hegemony, a proud warrior species that had never shown much interest in human affairs. Ambassador Corvan Prime Battleclaw arrived at New Seoul in a simple diplomatic shuttle, without the usual Federation escorts and ceremony. Kim Tae-ho, now serving as Earth Secretary of External Affairs, met with the tall reptilian alien in a simple conference room. It was a far cry from the grand chambers of Nexus 7. "Human Kim," Battleclaw said in his growling voice, "the Corvan people have watched your withdrawal with great interest. We see strength in your decision to walk away from disrespect." Kim Tae-ho leaned back in his chair. "The Federation made their position clear. We decided to accept it and move on." "The Federation grows weak without human support," Battleclaw observed. "The Scar grow bold. Other threats emerge. Perhaps it is time for new alliances." "Perhaps," Kim Tae-ho agreed carefully. As their meeting continued, similar conversations were happening across the galaxy. The Federation's carefully maintained 2 years had passed since humanity withdrew from the Galactic Federation, and the galaxy was a very different place. Intelligence Chief Baek Ji-ho stood in his office on Terra Station, surrounded by holographic displays showing data that would have seemed impossible just 24 months earlier. "The numbers don't lie," he said to President Yoon Se-ra, who was visiting his intelligence center for a briefing. "The Federation is in serious trouble." President Yoon Se-ra studied the displays with sharp eyes. She had aged in the past 2 years, but there was a strength in her bearing that hadn't been there before. Leading humanity's independence had given her a confidence that dealing with the Federation never had. "Show me the economic data first," she said. Baek Ji-ho waved his hand, and the displays changed to show trade route maps. Red lines indicated failing or abandoned routes, while blue lines showed new pathways through human space. 17 major trade routes that humans used to operate are now completely dead, he explained. The aliens tried to run them with their own ships, but they couldn't maintain the efficiency or security that human vessels provided. The data was stark. Federation trade volume had dropped by 40%. Entire sectors of the galaxy that had once been prosperous were now struggling with supply shortages and economic collapse. More importantly, Baek Ji-ho continued, 3 species have officially approached us for direct trade agreements, bypassing the Federation completely. The Corvan Zilith and Morphic Collective, President Yoon Sira nodded. I remember. What's their status? All 3 have established permanent trade stations in human space. The Corvan are actually moving their entire trade fleet operations to New Busan. They claim it's more efficient than working through Federation bureaucracy. Dr. Song Na-ri, the president's economic advisor, stepped forward with another set of data. She was a young woman with brilliant eyes who had predicted much of what was happening now. Ma'am, the most interesting development is what's happening to our own economy, she said, activating a new display. Human productivity is up 67% since withdrawal. President Yoon Sera raised an eyebrow.
67%?
Without Federation regulations limiting our industrial output, environmental restrictions that made no sense for human biology, and cultural committees that had to approve every major decision. Our colonies are operating at full capacity for the first time in decades. The display showed human space expanding rapidly. New colonies, mining operations, research stations, and industrial centers were sprouting up across dozens of star systems. Territory that the Federation had kept under protection was now bustling with human activity. The Federation isn't happy about our expansion, Baek Ji-ho noted. We've received 14 official complaints about humans violating protected space. President Yoon Sera laughed coldly. Protected by whom? We're not Federation members anymore. Their protection orders don't apply to us. But the real crisis for the Federation wasn't economic. It was military. General Oh Dong-min had called an emergency meeting with President Yoon Sera after receiving the latest intelligence reports about the Scar Empire. Ma'am, he said, his weathered face grim. The Scar have gotten bold, very bold. The war room displays showed Federation space, but now large sections were marked in red. Scar territory had expanded dramatically in just 2 years. Without human peacekeeping forces, the Federation has lost 12 star systems to Scar expansion, General Oh Dong-min continued. Their own military forces are proving completely inadequate. Colonel Yu Sang-ho, his intelligence chief, added more detail. The Federation species built their military strategy around human support. The Veltar focused on hive coordination, assuming humans would provide heavy firepower. The Queth developed defensive technologies expecting humans to handle offense. The Nethrim specialized in reconnaissance, counting on human ships for actual combat. So they're defenseless, President Yoon Sera observed. Worse than defenseless, General Oh Dong-min replied. They're militarily dependent on a species they just spent decades treating as inferiors. The irony wasn't lost on anyone in the room. The Federation had refused humanity full membership, partly because humans were too violent and too militaristic. Now, that same violence and militarism was exactly what they needed to survive. Dr. Shin Ha-young, head of human military research, had more disturbing news to share. She was a small woman with fierce intelligence who had been working on projects that would have been impossible under Federation oversight. The technology gap is widening rapidly, she reported. Without Federation restrictions on our weapons research, we've made breakthrough advances in plasma dynamics, shield generation, and faster-than-light combat systems. She activated a holographic model of a new human warship. It was sleek, deadly, and unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. This is the new Phoenix-class battleship, she explained. It's 3 times faster than Federation vessels, has shields that can resist Scar energy weapons, and carries firepower equivalent to an entire Federation battle group. President Yoon Sera studied the design. How many can we build? New Seoul shipyards can produce 1 every 6 weeks. We have orders for 20 ships from the Corvan alone. and the Zilith want to license the technology for their own defense forces. The meeting was interrupted by an urgent communication from Kim Tae-ho. The former ambassador's face appeared on the main screen and he looked troubled. "Ma'am," he said, "we've just received a priority communication from Federation leadership. They're requesting an immediate diplomatic meeting." President Yoon Se-ra exchanged glances with her advisors. "What kind of meeting?" "They want to discuss mutual concerns about galactic stability," Kim Tae-ho replied with barely concealed irony. The message came directly from Queen Voice Histara herself. "The same Queen Voice who told us we were too primitive for membership," General Oh Dongmin observed. "The very same." President Yoon Se-ra was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Finally she spoke. "Set up the meeting. But not on Nexus 7. If they want to talk, they can come to New Seoul." 2 weeks later, a Federation diplomatic ship arrived at New Seoul. It was a much smaller delegation than usual. Just 3 representatives instead of the massive entourages that had once characterized Federation diplomacy. Queen Voice Histara looked different. Her compound eyes seemed dimmer, and her forearms moved with less confidence than before. Queth singer Crystallix's crystals had lost some of their sparkle, and Nethrim flow speaker Gaseous Prime's form seemed less stable than usual. They met in a simple conference room, not the grand chambers they were used to. Kim Tae-ho, now Secretary of External Affairs, greeted them politely but without the deference he had once shown. "Welcome to New Seoul," he said simply. "How can we help you?" Histara spoke first, her voice still carrying the buzz of the hive mind, but it seemed less certain than before. "The Federation faces challenges that require cooperation from all galactic civilizations." "What kind of challenges?" Kim Tae-ho asked. Crystallix's crystals chimed with distress. "The Scar Empire grows bolder. They have taken Federation worlds. They threaten galactic peace." Gaseous Prime's form swirled with agitation. "Without proper security arrangements, the entire galactic community is at risk." Kim Tae-ho leaned back in his chair. "I see. And what does this have to do with humanity?" There was an uncomfortable silence. Finally, Histara spoke again. "Perhaps previous arrangements were suboptimal. The Federation is prepared to discuss new terms for human participation in galactic security." "What kind of terms?" Kim Tae-ho asked carefully. "Observer status," Crystallix chimed. "With expanded privileges." Kim Tae-ho almost laughed. "You want us to risk human lives defending Federation worlds but still refuse us full membership?" "Humans remain too unpredictable for full membership," Histara insisted, though her voice lacked its previous certainty. "But your military capabilities are useful." Kim Tae-ho stood up slowly. "Thank you for the offer. We'll consider it and respond through appropriate channels." "Consider it?" Gaseous Prime whispered in apparent shock. "The Federation offers great honor to humanity. The Federation offers us the chance to die for people who think we're too primitive to be their equals," Kim Tae-ho replied calmly. "That's not honor. That's exploitation." After the Federation delegation left, Kim Tae-ho met with President Yoon Se-ra to discuss their response. "They're desperate," he reported. "The Scar are winning and they know their own forces can't stop them." "What did you tell them?" "Nothing yet, but I think our response should be clear." Kim Tae-ho paused. "If they want our help, they need to recognize us as equals. Full membership, full voting rights, full respect." President Yoon Se-ra nodded. "And if they refuse? Then they can solve their own problems. We have allies now. The Corvin, Zealith, and Morphic Collective are all strong military powers. We don't need the Federation anymore." As if to prove the point, a communication arrived from Corvin Prime Battleclaw. The reptilian warrior appeared on screen with what might have been a smile on his predatory features. "Human Kim," he growled. "Corvin intelligence reports that 3 more Federation worlds have fallen to the Scar. Perhaps it is time to formalize our alliance with a D-Order." 5 years had passed since humanity left the Federation, and the galaxy was burning. Admiral Lim Chanwu stood on the bridge of the human flagship Incheon, watching through the view screen as another Federation world fell to the Scar Empire. The planet below was covered in the red glow of orbital bombardment, and streams of escape pods fled toward human rescue ships. "Sir," reported Commander Park Yoon-ji, his second-in-command, "that's the 18th Federation world to fall this month. The Scar are moving faster than anyone expected. Admiral, Lim Chan-woo was a tall man with gray streaks in his black hair and scars from his years fighting pirates in the Outer Rim. He had watched the Federation military collapse with a mixture of sadness and anger. These people had once been allies, even if they had never treated humans as equals. "Any response from Federation High Command?" he asked. "They're requesting immediate human military intervention," Commander Park Yoon-ji replied. "They're offering payment for our services." The Admiral shook his head. "Payment? As if we're mercenaries for hire." The truth was worse than payment, though. The Federation had finally realized that their military was completely inadequate without human support. Decades of relying on human peacekeepers had left them unable to defend themselves against serious threats. General Oh Dong-min had briefed President Yoon Se-ra just that morning on the scope of the disaster. The war room on Terra Station was filled with displays showing Red Scar territory, spreading like cancer across Federation space. 23 worlds lost in 6 months, the general reported grimly. The Federation military has been routed in every major engagement. Their ships are too slow, their weapons too weak, and their coordination too poor to fight the Scar effectively. President Yoon Se-ra studied the tactical displays with growing concern, not because she cared about the Federation's political survival, but because Scar expansion was getting dangerously close to human space. "What's our defensive status?" she asked. "All human worlds are secure," General Oh Dong-min assured her. "Our new Phoenix-class battleships have been tested against Scar raiders. They're completely superior to anything the Scar can field." Dr. Shin Hai-young, still head of military research, added more details. "The Scar sent 3 battle groups to probe our defenses last month. Captain Lee Jun-ho's squadron destroyed all 15 Scar vessels without losing a single human ship. But President Yoon Se-ra sensed there was more. But the Scar are learning from their defeats against us. They're adapting their tactics and technology. If they absorb Federation industrial capacity, they could become a real threat even to human space." The dilemma was clear. Humanity could sit back and watch the Federation collapse, but a victorious Scar empire controlling half the galaxy would eventually become dangerous even to humans. The decision became more urgent when intelligence Chief Baek Ji-ho brought news of the latest Federation diplomatic mission. "They're not asking for military aid anymore," he reported to President Yoon Se-ra. "They're begging." A new delegation had arrived at New Seoul. But this one was different from all the others. Instead of the proud representatives who had once dismissed humanity as primitive, 3 broken leaders came to plead for survival. Queen Voice Hystara looked nothing like the arrogant being who had lectured humans about their primitive nature. Her compound eyes were dull with exhaustion, and her forearms shook slightly as she spoke. "Human leaders," she buzzed weakly, "the Scar will not stop with Federation worlds. They have stated their intention to cleanse the galaxy of all species they consider inferior." Quethsinger Crystallux's crystal form had actually cracked in several places, a sign of extreme stress among his people. The Scar have weapons that can shatter crystal beings permanently. They have developed gases that dissolve Nethrim forms. They study human biology to find ways to kill your species more efficiently. Nethrim flow speaker Gaseous Prime could barely maintain cohesion, his gas form swirling with panic. They are not conquerors seeking territory. They are exterminators seeking to eliminate all non-Scar life. Kim Tae-ho, now Earth senior diplomat, listened to their pleas with a carefully neutral expression. Gone was the eager ambassador who had once begged for Federation acceptance. In his place sat a man who had learned the hard way that respect could not be earned through service alone. "This is certainly concerning," Kim Tae-ho said calmly. "What assistance are you requesting from humanity?" Hystara's voice cracked as she spoke. "Full human military intervention. We need your fleets, your technology, your tactical expertise. We need human forces to lead the defense of Federation space." "In exchange for what?" Kim Tae-ho asked. The 3 Federation representatives looked at each other desperately. Crystallux spoke first. "Full Federation membership for humanity. Voting rights equal to any founding species. Recognition of human territorial claims. And," Kim Tae-ho prompted, "joint command of all military operations," Gaseous Prime whispered. "Human admirals would lead Federation forces. And," Kim Tae-ho continued relentlessly. Hystara's voice was barely a whisper. "Technology sharing agreements. Access to all Federation research. Formal acknowledgement of human contributions to galactic civilization. Kim Tae-ho was quiet for a long moment. Everything they were offering now was what humanity had asked for years ago. Full membership, equal treatment, recognition of their worth. It had taken the near extinction of their civilization for the Federation to finally offer what should have been given freely. I'll need to discuss this with President Yoon Se-ra and the Human Council, Kim Tae-ho said finally. We'll have an answer within 72 hours. After the Federation delegation left, Kim Tae-ho met with President Yoon Se-ra and the senior leadership of human space. The debate was intense and immediate. We can't let the SCAR win, argued General Oh Dong-min. If they control Federation industrial capacity, they'll be able to build fleets large enough to threaten even human space. But why should we die for people who spent decades treating us like servants? Countered Dr. Song Nari, now serving as Director of Colonial Affairs. The Federation made this mess with their arrogance and weakness. Intelligence Chief Baek Ji-ho provided crucial context. Our allies are split on this issue. The Corvin want to fight. It matches their warrior culture. The Zilith are neutral. The Morphic Collective thinks we should let the Federation and SCAR destroy each other. President Yoon Se-ra listened to all arguments before speaking. The question isn't whether the Federation deserves our help. The question is whether humanity benefits from Federation survival. Dr. Shin Hye-young provided military analysis. If we intervene, we'll lose ships and personnel. But if we don't intervene, we'll eventually face a much stronger SCAR empire. How confident are we in victory? President Yoon Se-ra asked. Very confident, General Oh Dong-min replied immediately. Our ships are superior to both Federation and SCAR vessels. Our tactics are more flexible. Our technology is more advanced. We could probably end this war in 6 months if we committed fully. At what cost? Minimal, Dr. Shin Hye-young added. The new Phoenix-class ships are so superior that we'd probably lose fewer than a dozen vessels in the entire campaign. President Yoon Se-ra made her decision. We'll accept their offer, but with additional conditions. Kim Tae-ho raised an eyebrow. Additional conditions? First, human admirals don't just lead the military operation. They have permanent command authority over all Federation military forces. Second, all Federation species contribute their full industrial capacity to the war effort under human direction. Third, post-war reconstruction follows human plans and priorities. The room was quiet as everyone absorbed the implications. President Yoon Se-ra wasn't just accepting Federation partnership. She was demanding Federation subordination. And if they refuse? Kim Tae-ho asked. President Yoon Se-ra's smile was cold. Then they can face the SCAR alone. We'll defend human space and let the galaxy sort itself out. When Kim Tae-ho presented these terms to the Federation delegation, their desperation became complete. Queen Voice Hystara actually prostrated herself on the floor, something no Veltar had ever done before another species. We accept all terms, she buzzed desperately. Human command of all forces. Human direction of industrial production. Human leadership in reconstruction. We place Federation survival in human hands. Kim Tae-ho looked down at the once proud alien leader, who had called his species too primitive for equality. There was no satisfaction in it, only a sad recognition of how far the mighty had fallen. Very well, he said quietly. Humanity accepts responsibility for Federation defense. We'll begin military operations immediately. As the Federation delegation left to spread the news, Kim Tae-ho reflected on the irony. 5 years ago, humans had begged for a seat at the Federation table as equals. Now the Federation was begging humans to sit at the head of their table as leaders. The galaxy had indeed learned what happened when humans left the negotiating table, but the lesson was far from over. 10 years had passed since humanity walked away from the Federation negotiating table, and Admiral Lim Chan-woo stood in the command center of Terra Station watching the final phase of Operation Galactic Shield. The holographic displays showed human fleets systematically dismantling the last SCAR strongholds with ruthless efficiency. Sir, reported Captain Nam Hae-won, now his fleet coordinator, the SCAR homeworld has surrendered. Admiral Park So-ra reports complete victory in the core systems. Admiral Lim Chan-woo nodded with satisfaction. What the Federation had failed to accomplish in 5 years of desperate fighting, human forces had achieved in 6 months of coordinated assault. The SCAR Empire was finished. Casualties? He asked. 11 human ships damaged, none destroyed. SCAR losses are total. Their entire fleet has been eliminated or captured. The numbers spoke to the incredible advancement of human military technology. While the Federation had built their strategy around defending what they had, humans had focused on building the tools to take what they wanted. The results were devastating for humanity's enemies. Dr. Shin Hai-young, now Admiral of Military Development, had outdone herself. The latest generation of human warships didn't just outclass alien vessels, they made them obsolete. Quantum shields that could absorb any known weapon, hyperspace drives that made human fleets appear anywhere in the galaxy within hours, and AI-assisted targeting systems that never missed their mark. But the real revolution wasn't in technology. It was in strategy. General Oh Dong-min had developed a new form of warfare that combined human adaptability with alien strengths. Veltar Hive coordination under human tactical leadership. Queth defensive technology integrated with human offensive systems. Nethrum reconnaissance abilities supporting human strike forces. The Federation species weren't just being rescued by humanity, they were being transformed by it. President Yoon Sira stood before the newly constructed Galactic Assembly on Terra Station, addressing representatives from 47 different species. The old Federation Council chambers on Nexus 7 had been abandoned, replaced by this new center of galactic government built around human leadership. 10 years ago, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast hall, humanity was told we were too primitive for full membership in galactic civilization. Today we gather to establish a new order based not on species superiority, but on mutual contribution and earned respect. The audience included familiar faces transformed by a decade of change. Queen Voice Histara sat in a place of honor, but she no longer spoke for billions of Veltar. The hive mind had been restructured under human guidance, allowing individual Veltar to develop independent thought while maintaining their collective strengths. Queth Singer Crystallix had been replaced by a new generation of crystal beings who had learned human concepts of innovation and flexibility. The rigid, unchanging nature of Queth society had given way to dynamic growth and adaptation. Most dramatically, the Nethrum had discovered that human leadership allowed them to maintain cohesion better than their old chaotic systems. Gaseous Prime now served as head of the Interspecies Communication Council, helping different species understand each other under human mediation. But the biggest changes were in the new allies who had joined the human sphere. The Corvin hegemony had become humanity's strongest partner, their warrior culture finding perfect harmony with human tactical innovation. Corvin Prime Battleclaw now served as supreme military commander under human oversight. The Zilith Collective had integrated their advanced mathematics with human engineering to create wonders of architecture and computation that neither species could have achieved alone. The morphic shapeshifters had learned human concepts of individual identity while maintaining their fluid nature, becoming the galaxy's most effective diplomats and negotiators. Kim Tae-ho, now elder statesman of human diplomacy, watched from the observation deck as President Yoon Sira unveiled the charter of the new Galactic Confederation. Unlike the old Federation with its rigid hierarchy and species-based membership, the Confederation was based on contribution and merit. Every species, President Yoon Sira continued, will be judged not by their age, their power, or their history, but by what they contribute to our common prosperity and security. The old Federation still existed technically. A few species had chosen to maintain their independence rather than join the human-led Confederation. But they were now a minor regional power, controlling perhaps 15 star systems compared to the Confederation's 300 worlds. The transformation was most visible in the young beings now studying at the Human Diplomatic Academy. Veltar individuals learning independent decision-making, Queth youngsters being taught flexibility and creativity, Nethrum students practicing individual identity formation, and dozens of other species learning human approaches to problem-solving, leadership, and cooperation. Dr. Lee Min-woo, now Director of Interspecies Economic Development, had overseen the creation of an economic system that made the old Federation look primitive by comparison. Trade flowed freely between member species, but it was regulated by human principles of fairness and efficiency rather than the old system of favoritism and bureaucracy. The economic data is remarkable, he reported to the Confederation Council. Productivity across member species is up an average of 200% since joining the Confederation. Even former Federation worlds that have joined us show immediate improvement once human management systems are implemented. But perhaps the most significant change was in how the galaxy viewed humanity itself. Intelligence Chief Bayek Jiho, now head of Confederation Intelligence, regularly received reports about alien species requesting human advisors, human teachers, and human leadership. The psychological shift is complete, he reported to President Yoon Se-ra. Aliens no longer see humans as primitive upstarts. They see us as the most successful civilization in the galaxy, and they want to learn from our methods. This was most evident in the stream of diplomatic missions arriving at Terra Station, former Federation species begging to join the Confederation, independent worlds requesting human protection. Even species that had never had contact with either the Federation or humanity were seeking human alliance. Ambassador Jin Seo-yoon, head of the new Office of Species Integration, was overwhelmed with applications. "We have 47 species requesting membership this month alone," she reported, including 3 that specifically cited their desire to learn human approaches to governance and development. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The species that had once dismissed humans as too primitive to deserve respect now competed for human attention and approval. But President Yoon Se-ra was careful to avoid the mistakes the Federation had made. "We will not repeat the arrogance of our predecessors," she announced to the Confederation Council. "Every species that joins us will be welcomed as partners, not subjects. But partnership requires mutual respect and contribution." The ceremony concluding the formal establishment of the Galactic Confederation was held in the Great Assembly Hall on Terra Station. Representatives from across the galaxy watched as President Yoon Se-ra signed the charter that would govern interspecies relations for generations to come. In the audience, elderly Queen Voice Hystera watched with compound eyes that had learned humility. The being who had once lectured humans about their primitive nature now served as an advisor to young Veltar. "Learning human diplomatic methods, I was wrong," she admitted in a private conversation with Kim Tae-ho after the ceremony. "When we called humans primitive, we were looking at your technology, your social structures, your military organization. We failed to see your real strength," which was, Kim Tae-ho asked, though he already knew the answer, "your ability to grow, your willingness to change, your refusal to accept limitations imposed by others." Hystera's voice carried a buzzing that sounded almost like admiration. "The Federation species spent millennia perfecting our civilizations and then stopped growing. Humans never stopped becoming better." Kim Tae-ho nodded thoughtfully. "When we left your negotiating table 10 years ago, we didn't do it out of anger or spite. We did it because we realized we could build something better than what you were offering." "And you did," Hystera acknowledged. "The Confederation is everything the Federation should have been but was too proud to become." As the celebration continued around them, Kim Tae-ho reflected on the journey that had brought them here. 10 years ago, humanity had been dismissed as too primitive for galactic leadership. Today, human principles governed the most successful interspecies alliance in galactic history. The lesson was clear for anyone willing to learn it. Respect could not be begged for or earned through service alone. It had to be claimed through strength, demonstrated through achievement, and maintained through continued excellence. The galaxy had learned what happened when humans left the negotiating table. They didn't just find another table, they built a better one, and everyone else asked to join them. In the end, the Federation's greatest mistake wasn't underestimating human military power or human technology. It was underestimating the human refusal to accept second-class status in a galaxy they were destined to lead. When humans walked away from those who wouldn't treat them as equals, they discovered they didn't need